to desert Erkshby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Wonderful.
Welcome.
Thank you, Aziz.
Aziz.
Thank
you. You're welcome.
you.
So we are here. I am Sheree Jones of Thrive Time. Welcome to Thrive Time Conversations. I am here with the incomparable Tanesha Barnes, who is a global lifestyle entrepreneur. And I'm so excited to have you be our fearless one featured for Thrive Time magazine.
I'm so honored. Thank you.
Yes, we are here in the Sahara Desert on a trip that Tanesha has curated along with Tisha Dixon Williams of Who's That Lady. And this is the last day of our trip, but I wanted to take a few minutes out just to chat with you because I just think you're amazing. I think you're absolutely amazing. All of what you're doing is phenomenal. So first, I just want to know you're an African American woman, but you really live almost full time in Africa. So you kind of go from America to Africa regularly. So I want to know, how did you come to be this global entrepreneur, lifestyle entrepreneur?
I don't know. No, I've been traveling since I was 16. I first did my first study abroad in Russia. And I think it woke something up inside of me. At that time, it was really exciting in Russia. Things were new, and I got to see myself differently in the world. I think that there's something about travel. It exposes you through the eyes of others.
Yeah.
And I think I've had the travel bug ever since. Yeah.
So with Mwasi Global, the Mwasi Global community, I really want to know more about it, but from hearing you share with us over dinner, it's like your goal. What is your mission? Because it seems like it's really much about empowering African American Black women across the globe. And so I want you to share more about that, because that's really who the audience of Thrive Time is. We're really about empowering women.
I see, because I got some of your Thrive Time people with us. Mwasi Global Community is a Black-centered community that our mission is to help people recover themselves, and that mission really, from a global perspective, is when you're an African American in America, you live on the periphery of your nation, right? So it's a dual kind of understanding of yourself, because you're privileged as an American, but yet you are oppressed within the space, and you are always seeing yourself juxtaposed to whiteness. And when you travel, it's like you become you, and your existence isn't predicated on whiteness.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something really powerful. I always say, like, travel returns you to yourself as a Black person in America. And for me, it's been everything. I think that I got to understand who I was, and I want that for other people. I want them to see that there's a whole world out there. And I always tell people that Black American people are the freest people, Black people on earth. You can move around the world in a way that no other Black people on earth can move around the world. But I think in our minds and the existence, when you're constantly in the state of oppression, you don't really see the freedom that you have with that American passport.
Okay.
And so what I hope in Mwasi Global Community becomes is an imagining of what's more, of how else you can live and where else you can live, and that we utilize the privilege that we have as Americans to be able to push forward and to find new ways to live to where we aren't on the periphery of a society.
Thank you. I would agree with what you're saying. This is my first time being in Africa, and so just being here, and now I'm being in the Sahara Desert. I knew coming to the Sahara, I was going to hear from God, but just even the experience in Morocco and Marrakesh, you're right. You can just be. There's this power and just being,
And
not in comparison to
Yes.
something else or someone else, to just be.
Yeah. I've always hated like the black versions of things. You know, like the black version of of Steel and Magnolias, or the black version, we are the version. We are the center of everything. And I think that when we don't know that about ourselves really, really deeply, it disconnects us from who we really are. And the power that we have as African Americans is really special. One of the things that I'm realizing is like, because we've been disconnected from our tribal origins, right? Most people in the world are kind of confined by tribalism. Everyone, Europeans are the most tribal people on earth. Like, we could talk about it in terms of like people of color, but it's everyone.
Yeah.
African Americans, that disconnection that enslavement created also freed us. And that's a hard thing to accept, because we see the terrible parts of slavery in it, and there's nothing we want to we don't want to reenact this, right? But what it did is it freed us of these tribal affiliations, and it gave us the ability to create a humanity that's different, that's predicated on something more that connects all of us as human beings. And I think when African Americans do the work to deconstruct their own white supremacy, and they do the work to deconstruct their own kind of the ways in which in society we split ourselves apart, and we really engage the world knowing our history and what we've been through and wanting more. Like, I want for you what I want for me. I want for the Chinese person what I want for me. I want for everybody what I want for me. But essentially, right now in this particular juncture, I want for Black people what I want for myself, and that's freedom.
Yeah.
And I think that the world offers that up in a really beautiful way when you engage it.
Thank you for sharing that. I think last night, we had a really wonderful experience. It's our closing ceremony for our time here. You had the Ganawa people come, and they played drums, and they had the castanets,
Yeah, that's it.
and we got to sit around the fire and dance and sing together. And at one point, it was like the Holy Spirit came, and we got up, and everyone kind of praised and worshiped in their own way. And almost every woman said last night was the best sleep they got. And I'm convinced it was something about the drums that did something to our spirit, to realign us in some way, because we stayed in a 5-star palace for 4 nights. But when we came out to the desert, it was the best sleep. Almost everyone said it was the best sleep they got the entire trip.
The Sahara for me is like, it's a really special place. It's a spiritual vortex, but it is a place that allows you to be quiet with yourself in a way that I think we don't often get to do. The Sahara for me during COVID was a sanctuary, and it really took me and my child in, and it gave us safety. It gave us a place where we could run in the Sahara. I mean, there was 300 people in our town. There was no cases of COVID. There was no mask. And so the Sahara is really special. But I think for everybody that comes here, the simplicity of life here, it reminds you of how little you need to have so much. And I find that the people here are very rich in culture, and there's something really deeply African about the Sahara, because this is the middle passage of a particular time, right? Everything wonderful from sub-Saharan Africa came through here. And what I like about what I see people experience is that for the first time I see them really release, and particularly with the Ganawa. I love this tribe because they're so much like us. They were taken in slavery into this area from the Sudan, and they have built communities here around Morocco and had to reinvent themselves within a culture. And so I see a lot of similarities, but what they did really beautifully was maintain their cultural and spiritual presence in themselves. And I hope that for us.
So you touched on something, and it kind of speaks to why I wanted you to be our fearless one. You said during COVID, you made the choice to have you and your child, you lived here in the Sahara. You know, it's so like that just like who does that? Who has the mind to go, no, we're escaping all this pandemic and we're going to find solace in the desert. So something about you, like you choose a path that's not often taken. And so what can you point to that's kind of gotten you to that place where you color outside the lines?
Ooh, that's a beautiful question. You know what? I really pride, I credit my parents for really surrounding me in love. You know, like one thing that I know in this healing work that I've been doing is that people feel unsafe. And because they feel unsafe, then everything else gets blocked, right? And I have never felt unsafe. I have always felt protected. I have always felt loved. And I think that my parents really freed me in that way. And even when they hate everything about what I'm choosing to do, right? The Sahara was one of them. They've never really blocked me from doing any of the things, the crazy things. Even as a little girl, I dreamed up some extra stuff. And they've always just, even when they didn't agree, they just pushed me forward. And that freedom and that feeling of safety, I think, is what everybody's looking for. Everybody wants to feel safe, you know? And I think that has allowed me to really kind of go after. And I think too, like, you know, my parents did a really great job at providing. And I don't necessarily mean materially, but in rich experiences. You know, my father made sure that we went to almost all 50 states before I graduated high school in a van, child. In the summers.
In a van.
Yeah.
It wasn't fancy.
We called her Betty Lou, right? But that kind of like that exploration, it made me curious. And I just kind of took it further than they had expected.
Right.
Than they probably wanted me to. And even when I was coming to the Sahara, people were really scared. You know, it felt like the world was going to end.
Yeah.
But, you know, I also really believe in God.
Yeah.
Like, I deeply trust that things happen the way they're supposed to happen. And when I hear the voice pushing me to do these things, I just listen. And every time I've done that, it's worked out. And I realize, like, it's never just for me.
Yeah.
It always becomes a gateway for other people to come through. And so I just listen and go on the adventures, child.
I see. And so talking about that, you are, as a global lifestyle entrepreneur, you have all of these endeavors. Yeah. So it's not just Mwasi Global Community, you know, you're curating these travel experiences for people. And I'm going to tell you, if you do a travel excursion with Tanesha, it's going to be all top notch. I mean, we're here at a campsite, but this is a luxury campsite. It is beautiful. I mean, our tents have showers and flushing, you know, plumbing. So we're going to be well taken care of, eating really well.
I do like fancy stuff.
Yes. Right?
Well, I don't know about the struggle life. I don't like the struggle.
We want the struggle. We don't want the struggle. But you are a woman about her business.
Yes.
And so I want to know about, because everyone here is like, wait a minute, you have all these businesses. So I want to know more about some of your entrepreneurial endeavors right now.
Right. Well, right. T Barnes is the base, right? So T Barnes is, I'm a clinical esthetician.
Right. I just learned that today. Yeah. Just layers. Yeah. She's like a rose petal, just peeling back all these layers.
I really like that hands-on thing. I went to NYU. I'm sure my dad was like, clinical esthetician. Wait a minute. This $100,000 and some education needs to go to something else. But I really love the hands-on of what aesthetics offered me. And it was a connection to humans, right? Like touching them and being in their vulnerable spaces. And I think it was always leading towards healing work, right? Like always leading towards getting people to have these broader experiences. I remember I had one woman in my aesthetics table who would come every month. Her husband had never seen her without makeup.
Oh, wow.
I was literally the only person in her life that would ever see her without makeup, and there was nothing wrong with her skin. Wow. And so during those facials, it was also conversations around how there's something else going on here, you know? And I realized, like, oh, this is really a beautiful place to connect. And then, but I knew, you know, that NYU education wasn't gonna go to waste. And so I knew that I was gonna have a skincare line. I knew the things that I wanted to do. And so, the skincare turned into the bath and body, which turned into the cosmetics, which turned into the candles, which turned into the fashion. And then the fashion was when I really started traveling around the world to start manufacturing.
Okay.
And then the clients were like, I want to go. And I was like, okay. And one trip every January turned into 8 to 9 trips a year.
Wow.
Yeah, full groups of trips. And that turned into a full-fledged travel business, which turned into me moving all over the world. And I ended up in the Sahara because I met a guy on the plane, and he said I have this palace, and I said, okay, I could try to go see what I could do with that palace. And then, here we are.
And you
2
doing
years
interior
later.
decorating. You
I'm
decorate.
a creative. That's what I tell people.
Right.
I'm just a creative. So like, there's a lot of creative endeavors that I like to do, and that God has blessed me with those talents to be able to look at design and to create spaces. And I think designing an experience is the same as designing a dress. How do you want people to feel? And I'm a Texan, so having people feel warm.
Yeah.
My grandmother, I grew up with my great grandparents and my grandparents and my parents, and on both sides. And there's something about Texas, like there's a warmth. You come in. I didn't realize half the people in my family is not really my family. Like they're just adopted folks that we just picked up along the way.
The neighbor, nanny, auntie.
Yeah, and so there's a warmth about it, and I feel like that's all kind of woven in through. Yeah. It's really all the same business, right? But there's these sections. But in Wasi in particular is what I call my love offering to the community. It is you got to run it as a business, just like any other thing. But what I hope is that people will come to our space in Morocco and find healing, and be able to take a minute. I hope to get people to Africa.
Yeah.
I want people to move.
Yeah.
I think that we take for granted that we think we're living in the best place, and I see people thriving in other places, and I want that for more of us. I want the peace that I feel in Africa for other people. And so I always got into your mom. I'm always trying to bring you in. So I'm like, you and your husband could just move down the street, and then the 3 kids could go to this school, and ultimately.
Yeah. Well, I want to close, I guess, with just a question for you in terms of, because I feel like you are a fearless woman, fierce and fearless. How would you define fearless, though? What would you say? What does that look like to be fearless?
So I don't think I'm fearless. I'm always afraid. I just don't ever let that stop me. I think that I'm faithful. And so faithful probably more than fearless. I definitely feel, I got scared when I was like, wait a minute, I'm 50 kilometers from Algeria with my baby, and the world is about to end, and I don't know what's going on. I get scared, all of it. It's hard. This is hard work. Yeah. It's hard leading people abroad. It's hard. There's a lot of emotions and things. I'm always scared, right? But I am so faithful. And I just know that, like, God doesn't put you in places that you're not supposed to be, doesn't sit you at tables. She's very much a God that pushes you. And if you listen to those whispers and you just trust, I just trust. I'll be like, all right, you said move to Italy, that's where I'm going. And that's where I go. And I've done that. And it's always turned out wonderful. And even when it's hard, the lessons that I learned, I understand now. I can see everything I've ever done in my life as having a link. And I'm like, oh, okay. I see why I needed that lesson. I needed that hurt. I needed that pain. And then, so I think it's less fearless and more faithful.
So faithfulness instead of fearlessness.
I think so.
I think they kind of blend in together.
I guess so.
Because I realize when you say fearless, it really doesn't mean to be without fear. It just means to fear less.
Fear less.
You fear less and have more faith.
I think that's what it is.
Then
I'm fearless, girl. I'm fearless.
Yes, you are, and you're leading so many. You're inspiring so many people, and I just love your story and just hearing that all these things that don't seem to connect. There's some points of connection some kind of way, and I think you just teaching all of us to not be afraid to color outside the lines, not be afraid to just you know, and I'm of this mindset now. Whatever God gives me to do, it may seem crazy. People may not understand it, but all I can do is just do it and see what happens.
That's it.
And it's amazing when you take that leap. It's not only for you.
It's
like
never-
all of what you've done, now you have how many countless people who followed you across the globe, and you've changed lives. And I know all the women who've come on this trip, we're different. We're better than when we came. And we're grateful to Nwasi. We're grateful to Who's That Lady for bringing us together. I'm grateful that I finally have gotten a chance to meet you and sit down.
I can't wait to write
talk.
a piece for your magazine, girl.
Yes,
I can't
we're
wait.
gonna do
I want to be the
something.
travel person.
Yes. I love it. We're gonna have we got some collaborations coming out of this thing, and so we're gonna close with a toast. So you see, Aziz poured us a lovely glass.
He didn't want to leave though.
He didn't. He wanted to stay on
the
camera.
Dress. It's
It
the
was-
dress.
I know all of that, right? He was all in the camera. But this is what they call it. This is the Berber bourbon.
Yeah, the bourbon whiskey.
The bourbon whiskey, right? But it's no alcohol. This is Moroccan tea. So here is to Nwasi Global and to Thrive Time.
Yeah.
Be fearless and be faithful to you. Yes. This is the best tea I've ever had. I gotta tell you.